Hello, welcome to Papa Nick's Music. I am, as always, your host, Papa Nick Lewis. And today's going to be a fairly short one. It's time for an update on my Summer of the Bee Gees. A couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I guess now, I posted a video in which I listed my 10 favorite Bee Gees top 40 singles. And in that video, I talked about how when I'm looking for new music, what I prefer to do, just because of my age and my general inclinations, rather than exploring for contemporary new music, although I do that from time to time. Young Gun Silver Fox comes to mind. What I like to do is I like to go back and find artists that I think I've glossed over in the past and dive into their discography and see if it's something that I would want to that I want to listen to, that I see if I'm actually a fan of these people or not. And I used the Bee Gees as an example. My knowledge of the Bee Gees up to the beginning of this process has largely been based on the fact that they were ubiquitous on top 40 radio throughout the bulk of my youth. And I knew all of the radio singles, and I liked all of the radio singles, and we talked about that last time. But that was pretty much all I knew. I was a greatest hits fan. And I've decided that I'm going to explore their catalog this summer to see if I actually like the Bee Gees, or if I'm just going to content myself with being a greatest hits fan. What I realize now, looking back on it, that I didn't really talk about in that first video was my perception of the band. I mean, I talked a lot about what I knew about the music, but I didn't really talk about my perception of the guys themselves. And so I want to start with that. This is, up until a couple of weeks ago, this is how I thought about the Bee Gees. This is what I thought, what I knew about the Bee Gees. I knew, for example, that they were three brothers, or the heart of the band was three brothers, born in England but grew up in Australia, had moderate success as recording artists in Australia. Then they went back to England, found greater success, and before long became a worldwide phenomenon. And then they crashed, and then they became a worldwide phenomenon times 10, and then they crashed, and then they sputtered for a while. Because I have always liked music, I've always paid attention to music in pop culture, so I have seen the Bee Gees many times on talk shows and variety shows. The Midnight Special, they hosted the Midnight Special a few times, and I have seen some of that. And so I had an awareness of who the different brothers were. I knew that Barry was the older one and that Robin and Morris were fraternal twins. And there's a couple of years age difference between them. Barry's got a very distinctive voice. Robin has a very distinctive voice, so I always assumed Morris was the one that I that I couldn't pin down. And I knew that I liked Morris. I liked the fact, first off, that of the three, his voice was the hardest to identify. There's something deep in my wiring that makes me support the underdog, and okay, that's a reason for me to like Morris. I also liked him because every time I saw them performing, if it was a live performance as opposed to just the three of them standing there lip syncing to a record, Barry was always playing a guitar, but Morris was always playing something. Sometimes he's playing a guitar, sometimes he's playing the bass, sometimes he's playing piano. He's playing something, and that something is different from performance to performance. And so I had pretty much concluded that of the three, Morris was the musician, and that made me like him that much more. And then finally I liked him because Barry's got a pretty good sense of humor, but Morris's sense of humor is fantastic. The way he jokes with the audience in the down times when they're playing Massachusetts, for example. If it's just the three of them singing Massachusetts, there's big chunks of time where Morris is standing off to the side looking at his watch. And that stuff just cracks me up. So I knew going into it that I liked Morris. I also knew going into it that I don't care that much for Robin. I don't like Robin's voice. I used to think when I was young that it was his very operatic vibrato, and while that is irritating, I mean it's like a jackhammer. I've come to the conclusion that that's not really it. What I don't like is the tonal quality of his voice. I mean, even by Bee Gees standards, Robin's voice is, oh my God, nasal. And I can't take a steady diet of it. I don't mind him in small doses. And when he is singing in harmony, it doesn't stand out. I've also noticed even when he's double tracked, if it's just him singing, double tracking lessens the pain in my ears. So I knew going into it who the guys were. I had a rough idea of their biography. I knew that I liked Morris, and I didn't much care for Robin. So today's update on the progress of the summer of the Bee Gees is going to focus on everything from 1967 to 1973. 1967 was the release of their first album in England, Bee Gees' first. 1973 was the release of Life in a Tin Can. I have listened to the first two albums that they did in Australia, and I'm having to look for the title of this first one. The Bee Gees Sing and Play 14 Barry Gibb Songs, and Spicks and Specks. And Spicks and Specks, the song is a nifty little pop tune. The rest of the album, I don't know if I want to include these. So, in my final ranking, my final discussion at the end, I'm very likely just going to drop those two out. And just right off the bat, just this chunk of time, 67 to 73, there are a few things that I have learned. I have learned first that yes, I am very likely going to end up at the end of this process being a Bee Gees fan. There is a lot more here that I like than there is that I don't like. So I'm liking this stuff so far. And what I've also learned is that I really like Morris and I don't care much for Robin. The more I listen to, the more those two prejudices are just getting laid down in cement. Morris is a fantastic musician. I am just lost in wonder at the bass lines on most of these albums. Here in the late 60s to early 70s, man, he is just... A frequent note on my list is Morris is going apeshit on his bass. I mean, he is a really impressive bass player. He's a really impressive pianist. I'm really liking Morris. I've also discovered what I normally do when I'm listening to music for the first time. If I've got the lyric sheet, as I'm listening to music, I follow along with the lyrics. I've talked in the past about this. I had a video about this several weeks ago with my Mondegreen video. My hearing is not reliable, and so there's no guarantee that the words I think I'm hearing are actually the words that this singer is singing. So I like following along on the lyrics. It helps me process the song a little bit better. And what I've discovered with the Bee Gees is you don't want to do that. The Bee Gees are wonderful songwriters when it comes to their music. The Bee Gees are, they write great melodies and they've got nice tunes, nice chords. I mean, I can get lost listening to their music. They are great composers. When it comes to lyrics, they are great composers. I'm not saying that they're bad lyricists. I'm saying that they are wildly uneven as lyricists. Every once in a while, they crank out a really good, evocative lyric. New York mining disaster, 1941, just leaps out of my memory. And then they'll yeah, I'm not going to bother. Every album, I'm finding at least a half dozen songs where I'm thinking, what the, what, what the, what? And so I'm about 4 albums in when I finally think I can't do this anymore. Listening to, knowing what the lyrics are was holding me back. So I stopped paying attention to the lyrics, and from that point forward, everything was going down much better. Everything is much nicer, and so I have learned that their music is better if you don't pay attention to the lyrics. That being said, there's some good stuff in here. I really like the album's Idea, Trafalgar, and surprisingly to me, To Whom It May Concern. I really like those 3 albums. They stand out as great thumbs up. I'm lukewarm towards Life in a Tin Can, which I'm not surprised by based on what I've read about the Beach Boys. The Beach Boys, Jesus Christ. Based on what I've read about the Bee Gees. But strangely, I'm also lukewarm towards Odessa, which is a lot of people consider to be a very good, if not classic, album. And I'm lukewarm towards Odessa. And I am just flat out heartbroken over Cucumber Castle. I really wanted to like Cucumber Castle. Oh, do I want to like Cucumber Castle? And I do like it. I mean, I think it's a good album. But I wanted it to be, one of my favorites. Cucumber Castle is, for those of you who are along on this journey with me as opposed to watching from the sidelines, Cucumber Castle is the album that Barry and Morris released when Robin had left the group in 1970. I think it was 1970. Just do a quick check on my notes. Yes, 1970. And so it's just Barry and Morris. And so I'm thinking, oh man, if the strike while the iron's hot. Quick, do a good album while Robin's out of the room. And the songwriting is okay. It's not stellar. The music performance is good. It's not stellar. There are a couple really good songs on there. Every album has at least one really good song on it. Just overall, I'm largely lukewarm towards it. Which, well, I'm better than lukewarm, but I'm a little heartbroken because I expected that I was going to be in love with it. So far, the summer of the Bee Gees is proceeding wonderfully. I'm listening to a lot of stuff I've never heard before, a lot of stuff that I have heard before. I didn't realize that was that song. Oh, now, now I know where that song came from. And I am coming away, the more I listen to, and the more I read about the band, I'm coming away with greater and greater respect for Morris Gibb. I think I predict that I'm going to come out the other end of this a huge fan of Barry Gibb as a composer and a huge fan of Morris Gibb as a musician and all-around person. So, and as far as Robin goes, I'm going to come out of this with a huge appreciation for Barry and Morris. I will say one last thing before I sign off. I've also been reading. I've got a couple of books. I've got one biography. The title of it is not coming up, so it's this book right here. And I read through that thing, and there's a lot of good detail going into who was available for what recording and some of the dynamic of the band. But an irritating feature of this book is that 90% of the attributed quotations throughout the book, whether we're talking about the three brothers themselves or the guys like Alan Kendall, who were members of the band, even though they weren't Brothers Gibb, but they were part of the Bee Gees. Interviewed bits with Robert Stigwood, their personal manager, the family, everybody. There are a lot of different quotations throughout this thing, throughout this book, and the overwhelming majority of them sound as if they were taken from fan magazines. They sound like snippets from interviews that these people are doing with, Tiger Beat, and the number of exclamation marks in this thing is just So, if you have not read the book and you're interested in learning more about the Bee Gees, I do recommend it as far as the information goes. Just get ready, because you're going to need to put it down from time to time to, have a beer and de-stress from the. We think it's our best album yet! Exclamation mark. Oh, Jesus. But it's interesting, and I'm having fun, and I'm adding lots of wonderful music to my library. So, do you have any suggestions for what I should be doing as I go on my Summer of the Bee Gees journey? Drop them down below. Let me know what you think. If, as I said in the top 40 video my favorite top 40 singles video that I did a few weeks ago, if you are an ardent Bee Gees fan, if that's why you've come across this, because you watch every Bee Gees video on YouTube, and so this has been suggested, give me some pointers for things that I should be paying attention to, especially when it comes to reliable biographies of the band and reliable information regarding the recording processes that they went through. I would very much appreciate that. As always, if you enjoyed the video, and I'm assuming that you did if you're still watching it, I'd appreciate it if you'd click the like button. If you have not, then go ahead and click the subscribe button. I would appreciate that. If you do subscribe, go ahead and click the notification icon. But as I release things, you'll get notified, and that's always wonderful. And I hope that you enjoyed the video. Thank you for coming along today. And I hope that the rest of your day is playful. See you soon.